We never expected nothing like this. Never.
What in the hell is going on here?
Oh, look at this.
Oh, wow.
Going in right now.
We're going to run a camera in Aladdin's cave.
Oh my God, look at that.
Beneath the windswept soil of Oak Island, history has been shattered. Rick Lagina has unearthed a hidden chamber overflowing with unimaginable wealth. Not just relics, not just whispers of Templar myths, but hard, gleaming proof. Stacked gold bars valued at over $200 million. The chamber, sealed for centuries, was stumbled upon after years of relentless digging, sleepless nights, and near-bankrupt operations. For decades, treasure hunters mocked the Laginas, claiming Oak Island was a graveyard of empty promises. Today, those doubters are silenced. The discovery has rewritten the legend, transforming speculation into staggering reality. Eyewitnesses describe walls lined with shimmering bricks of gold, arranged like a fortress vault, untouched since the day they were hidden away. Government officials are circling, rivals are furious, and the global media is converging on Nova Scotia. But Rick stands at the center of it all, holding the proof of the world's most enduring mystery in his hands. This isn't rumor, this isn't myth, this is gold, $200 million worth of it, dragged from the shadows of Oak Island's cursed depths. And now, the world is watching as Rick Lagina faces the question, who really owns the treasure of Oak Island? If you're ready to dive deeper into this unfolding mystery, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss a single revelation. The story begins at Smith's Cove, where routine scans of an uncharted section of ground return readings no one expects. Ground-penetrating radar outlines not a rough cavity or collapsed tunnel, but a vast geometric hollow shaped like the nave of a cathedral. Perfectly symmetrical, precise in its design, it doesn't resemble the random voids they've encountered in countless failed digs. This looks deliberate. This looks built. Rick stares at the data in silence. For decades he has dreamed of proof that Oak Island holds more than scattered coins and timber shafts. Now, staring at the sonar printouts, he realizes this is not another false lead. Beneath their feet lies something engineered, concealed far deeper than the money pit, hidden with a purpose. Word spreads quickly among locals, and Mi'kmaq elders visit the site with quiet warnings. They speak of iron bones sleeping beneath the earth, guardians of something sacred that was never meant to be disturbed. To Rick, the words sound less like folklore and more like a prophecy echoing across centuries. The air around the dig changes, charged with a weight heavier than soil. This is no longer ordinary treasure hunting. It feels like trespassing on forbidden ground. As preparations begin, the island itself seems to resist. Sensors deployed around the void flicker with interference, registering electromagnetic surges that make no geological sense. Compass needles spin wildly, useless in the magnetic storm. Radios hiss with static. Drillers whisper about invisible currents rippling through the bedrock. It's as if the chamber itself emits a pulse, a warning signal designed to confuse intruders. Marty, ever the pragmatist, voices his doubts. Could this simply be magnetite, iron-rich stone disrupting their instruments? Or is it something far more advanced, a shield built with knowledge lost to time? The crew gathers, as a historian recalls rumors buried deep in Templar lore, relics hidden in vaults, protected by the science of the angels, artifacts designed to blind the unworthy and shield holy treasures. For Rick, the implications are staggering. What they are facing is not just geology or engineering, it's a bridge between science and myth, a fusion of faith and technology centuries ahead of its time. The mystery only deepens when researchers scour archives in Halifax for answers. In a forgotten corner of a French codex, they find an entry that chills them. It describes a golden nave beneath the New World, where ingots and sanctified relics are preserved. The words match the chamber's dimensions almost exactly. The codex traces its origin to 1307, the very year the Templars were expelled from France, when entire fleets and fortunes vanished overnight. One line in the manuscript stands out, scrawled hastily in the margin by an unknown hand. "The keeper of the vault will sleep until summoned." The phrase hangs in the air like a curse. Was the chamber not only a vault but a tomb? Was something or someone buried to watch over the gold? Rick's hands tighten on the page, his mind racing. The legends of guardianship suddenly feel less like myth and more like warning. Days later, the dig itself seems to answer that warning. Under the relentless scrape of machinery and hand tools, the last veil of earth is stripped away, revealing a surface unlike anything the team has encountered before. Embedded into the bedrock itself, as though grown from the island's bones, is a sealed iron doorway. Not rusted plates of colonial construction, not crude timbers like the ones littering the money pit. This is something wholly alien. Smooth, cold, and seamless, its presence feels less like architecture than a sentinel, waiting. Rick moves closer, his flashlight beam glancing across the surface, where symbols rise faintly from the dark metal. An Ouroboros coiling endlessly into itself, solar discs gleaming faintly under centuries of grime, Hebrew letters interlaced with alchemical sigils, forming a code only the initiated could ever hope to decipher. The first attempts to break it prove futile. Heat torches scream against the barrier, their flames licking the iron until tips melt uselessly, dripping sparks into the dirt. Grinding wheels shriek only to spark out in defeat. It is as if the door absorbs punishment, swallowing modern technology without a scar. Engineers gather, shaking their heads in disbelief. One finally speaks, his voice carrying both awe and dread. The alloy isn't earthly. The texture, the density. This is meteoric iron, forged from the heavens. The realization is staggering. Whoever built this vault didn't just use the Earth's resources. They reached into the stars. Days of effort follow. Winches are rigged, cables groan, the chamber filled with the constant hum of tension. Finally, with a sound like thunder compressed into a whisper, the door yields. A hairline crack snakes across its frame, spreading with agonizing slowness until at last it gives. The seal breaks with a boom that shakes the cavern, releasing a torrent of stale air that reeks of age and iron. The crew staggers back, covering their mouths against the sudden gust, while Rick, eyes wide, whispers only one word: open. Beyond the shattered gateway lies a sloping corridor, swallowed by shadow until floodlights banish the dark. The beam cuts across the ground and every man freezes. The walls themselves glitter. The entire passage is coated in golden dust, pressed into the plaster like veins of sunlight frozen in stone. It runs like a river, catching every flicker of light, shimmering as though alive. Geologists examine it, their instruments confirming what eyes can scarcely believe. This is no natural mineral deposit. This is powdered gold, deliberately ground and fused into the structure. Not for storage, not for decoration, but for some greater purpose, some ritual long since forgotten. The air grows heavy. Workers complain of a metallic tang on their tongues, a dizziness that washes over them the longer they remain inside. The corridor feels alive, pulsing with unseen energy, each breath thick as molten metal. Rick presses forward regardless, his boots crunching against the golden film. His voice is steady, yet laced with obsession. We didn't come this far to turn back. Marty hesitates, his usual confidence faltering in the flicker of gold. He leans toward his brother, his whisper carried in the cavern's silence. This isn't discovery anymore. It's trespass. Yet onward they move, deeper into the corridor where history and myth bleed together. The slope ends abruptly at a vast chamber, and as lights blaze across the interior, jaws drop. At the center stands a dais, raised high above the floor like an altar. Upon it, gleaming despite centuries of dust, is a throne. Not carved from stone or hewn from timber, but assembled entirely from stacked ingots of solid gold. Bar upon bar forms the arms, the back, the seat, each stamped with sigils that defy recognition. These are not Spanish mint marks, not English crests, not the familiar emblems of monarchs or empires. They belong to no treasury known to history. Embedded into the throne's base, half buried in the glittering structure, lies an object that steals every breath from the room. A cross, jeweled and radiant, even in the harsh glare of work lamps. Rubies, emeralds, and sapphires glimmer from its surface, refracting light into shards that dance across the chamber walls. But it is no ordinary relic. The cross does not merely reflect light. It seems to exude it, casting a faint glow that persists when lamps shift away. The throne is not wealth arranged for storage, nor hoarded coin pressed into seats of power. It is worship incarnate, a place where gold ceased to be money and became something sacred, an altar of metal forged to honor something greater, something hidden in secrecy and shadow. Rick stares at it, every doubt stripped from his mind. This is not a treasure trove. It is a temple. Yet even temples keep secrets. As silence presses in, Rick notices how the shadows at the throne's back seem unnaturally deep, clinging as if to conceal something more. He steps closer, running his light across the stone, and the illusion breaks. Behind the golden seat, the rock is not solid at all, but cut away, revealing a recess where the island itself has been shaped into machinery. From the living stone protrude gears, wheels, and levers of brass, still gleaming beneath layers of dust, preserved as if untouched by time. The mechanisms interlock with precision no medieval craftsman was ever believed to possess, each gear meshing seamlessly, each lever counterbalanced with mathematical accuracy. Engineers kneel before it in disbelief, tracing the lines of construction with trembling hands. This was not the crude ingenuity of a desperate age. It was a system of control. Sluices carved into the walls, hidden valves waiting to release torrents of water at a single pull. The chamber was not just a vault. It was a trap, a temple built not only for worship, but for defense, ready to drown both gold and intruder beneath choking waves. Rick raised his hand for silence, his voice firm yet reverent as he reminded everyone that one careless move could spell their doom. A single slip of a gear, one lever nudged out of place, and the chamber could come alive with lethal intent. To him it felt less like machinery and more like a living sentinel, an ancient guardian that had been waiting for centuries to spring awake. His gaze lingered on it, torn between awe and dread. If this device had remained operational for all this time, what else had the builders left behind? What knowledge had been woven into this place, buried not for plunder but for preservation? As their eyes adjusted, Marty spotted another shape beyond the dais, a small iron-bound chest, half buried beneath fallen stone blocks. The crew pried it free with cautious hands, and as the lid creaked open, a golden shimmer flashed across their faces. Inside were not coins or jewels, but sheets of beaten gold, thin as parchment, rolled into scrolls and etched with delicate inscriptions. The writing shimmered under the lamps, carved not with ink, but with acid-sharp engravings in Latin and Greek. The translation came slowly, each word heavier than the last. The scrolls described themselves as the Testament of the Knights, a set of instructions outlining how treasures from Jerusalem, gold, relics, even sacred texts, were to be safeguarded when their order fell. One line stood out above the rest, sparking a hush over the group. These ingots are but a tithe of the greater fires hidden in sanctuaries beyond the sea. If true, what lay before them was not the end of a story, but a beginning. The bars stacked into a throne, the vault itself. It was only a fraction of a larger network, a global design to preserve wealth and knowledge against the march of time. Yet, alongside the instructions were warnings, repeated with unsettling insistence. Those who touched without oath, who sought without blessing, would be undone. The gold itself was sanctified, not meant for the hands of the uninitiated. The message was clear. The Templars had built not just a vault, but a test of faith. Rick read in silence, his expression taut, as if every word drew him deeper into an unspoken burden. To him, this was no mere hoard. Oak Island was not a fluke of legend. It was a deliberate hub, part of a hidden lattice of Templar sanctuaries stretching across continents. For the first time in his long years chasing shadows, he felt as though he was brushing against the truth itself, a truth that stretched beyond treasure into the very fabric of history. But before his thoughts could settle, another discovery shattered the chamber's silence. As bars of gold were carefully shifted aside to catalog markings, a dull glint emerged, smooth and unnatural against the rough edges of treasure. Beneath the stacked ingots, half embedded as though entombed, was a sphere, crystalline and flawless, the size of a human skull. Its surface refracted light in shifting waves, bending shadows into strange shapes that made the chamber feel alive. When one of the crew lifted it, a sound pulsed through the air, a faint hum, low and resonant, as though the object vibrated in harmony with the chamber's golden walls. Tools nearby rattled, brass gears clicked faintly, and the hairs on every arm stood on end. Scientists on site scrambled to make sense of it. Quartz was ruled out. It was not glass, not crystal, nothing that could be readily classified by earthly standards. Its density was wrong, its refractive qualities inexplicable. The hum it emitted seemed to interact with the chamber itself, resonating through the very veins of gold dust and igniting sparks of static in the lamps. To Rick, the implications were terrifying. This object was not decoration. It was a device, or perhaps a relic, from a source unknown to history. Legends whispered among the Templars surfaced in hushed voices. Stories of objects carried from Jerusalem, artifacts described as otherworldly gifts too dangerous to be revealed. Some believed them to be fragments of heaven itself, shards of divine presence locked in matter. Others whispered darker theories, that the Order had safeguarded relics not of God, but of something alien beyond the sky. The crystalline sphere could not be dismissed as symbolic. It was real, humming, watching them as though alive. The crew grew uneasy. Some dared to say aloud what everyone feared, that the gold was camouflage, a decoy to lure seekers into reverence and awe. The true treasure, the real prize, was this sphere, and perhaps it had never been meant to be lifted at all. Rick, gripping the artifact with both hands, felt its vibration seep into his bones. His mind reeled, torn between triumph and terror, between the staggering wealth surrounding him and the haunting thought that the Templars had not hidden gold to preserve power, but to conceal something the world was never meant to see. And Oak Island itself seemed to know. Whispers spread beyond the camp, carried by divers, engineers, and workers who had seen too much to keep silent. Rumors of a glowing relic hidden beneath the vault reached the mainland within hours, multiplying as they traveled. By the time word reached Halifax, it was no longer just a discovery. It was a potential threat. That was when the storm arrived. Black SUVs rolled onto the causeway, their windows tinted, engines humming with authority. Government officials, armed with documents stamped and sealed, strode into camp with the weight of bureaucracy behind them. Lawyers spoke in clipped tones, presenting orders that claimed every ounce of the vault's contents fell under the umbrella of national heritage protection. To the officials, it was no longer Rick and Marty's find. It was Canada's, or perhaps the world's, and by their papers, the brothers had no legal claim to touch what they had uncovered. The island's waters thickened with vessels that hadn't been there before. Private contractors circled offshore, their intentions thinly veiled, their equipment gleaming in the sunlight. Salvage companies, corporate backers, perhaps even intelligence-linked expeditions, all ready to seize control the moment the vault was breached further. Rick's stomach churned as he watched strangers swarm the island. History was repeating itself. For centuries, Oak Island had been picked over by those seeking fortune, each group stripping fragments of truth before moving on. And now, at the very moment the island had yielded its most breathtaking secret, outsiders were once again closing in, determined to claim it. Rick and Marty stood shoulder to shoulder, surrounded by their weary crew, and made a vow. If nothing else, the world would hear their story before the vault was emptied, before the truth was buried under government seals and corporate coffers. Cameras were readied, records secured, testimonies prepared. They would not let Oak Island's voice be silenced, even if the gold itself slipped from their hands. But even as they steeled themselves against human forces, the island prepared to deliver its own reckoning. The first phase of extraction began under heavy guard, floodlights burning through the cavern's stale air. Yet the moment the bars were lifted from their resting place, the chamber stirred. Stones rumbled, subtle tremors rolling through the floor like the warning growl of a beast disturbed. Gold ingots, stacked with precision for centuries, began to tumble in slow, deliberate cascades. The brass machinery behind the throne groaned, gears grinding, levers shifting as if some ancient mechanism had been triggered by the theft. Lights flickered overhead, plunging the cavern into pulsing darkness. Whispers filled the space. Or were they chants? Crew members swore they heard voices echoing in languages no one could recognize, rising and falling in cadences that wrapped around the golden dust-laden air. Panic rippled through the workers. Some dropped their tools and refused to re-enter the chamber, convinced the curse of the island was manifesting. Engineers, pale with dread, warned that if the machinery truly reactivated, the entire vault might collapse, flooding beneath the Atlantic, taking treasure, relics, and men with it. Rick stood frozen at the edge of the dais, the crystalline sphere still humming faintly where it had been moved. He felt the weight of choice pressing down heavier than the gold around him. Should they continue extraction, risking everything in pursuit of proof and wealth? Or should they preserve the mystery, sealing the chamber once more to prevent catastrophe? The silence that followed his hesitation was deafening. The chamber, it seemed, was demanding an answer. Against the chaos of officials shouting, contractors pressing their claims, and workers begging to leave, the brothers pressed on. Security escorted the first haul of gold bars to the surface, where experts waited to verify their authenticity. Under the harsh scrutiny of floodlights and cameras, the bars were weighed and assayed. Each glimmered with an unmistakable purity. Experts confirmed what few dared believe. This was no legend, no myth spun into currency. The find was real, and its value was staggering. $200 million at minimum, likely more once the full scale was measured. Media outlets exploded with headlines, crowning it the greatest treasure discovery in North American history. The Laginas, their faces haggard and eyes shadowed by sleepless nights, became the reluctant center of a global storm. Reporters shouted questions, governments issued statements, and corporations maneuvered in backroom deals. Yet through it all, one detail passed quietly, almost unnoticed. The crystalline sphere, the artifact that had defied classification and hummed with its own unsettling energy, was removed from the chamber under discreet guard. No photographs were released, no valuations made public. Its destination remained undisclosed, vanishing from the record even as the gold made front-page news. In front of the cameras, Rick tried to speak of triumph, but the words caught in his throat. When the microphones were turned away and the crowd thinned, he confessed the truth to those who would listen. The gold was never the treasure. It was the warning. The Templars had not simply hidden wealth. They had built a fortress of faith, technology, and sacrifice to guard something more profound, something perhaps unfit for humanity's grasp. The throne, the manuscripts, the crystalline relic. They were not trophies, but messages. Signs left behind to remind those who uncovered them that wealth could corrupt and power could destroy. But secrets carried consequences far beyond imagination. His final words carried not the excitement of a man vindicated, but the gravity of one who had looked too deeply into history's abyss. Oak Island had spoken, and its voice was not yet finished. The treasure may have been measured, catalogued, and appraised, but the island still held truths that no ledger could contain, truths humanity might never be ready to face.